One may not say this because all the words of the Torah are precious, divine, meaningful. But if there is a parsha that is one of my favorites, this is it, Ekev. In fact, we know that some of these sentences that we're going to be reading here are said every Saturday night as part of the Havdalah, wishing us a good week, as we will see in a moment. So the words are, and it shall come to pass as a consequence of your hearing, of your following these legal maxims, and carefully carrying them out, that Hashem, your God, will keep the covenant with you and the love with you that he swore to your forefathers. The continuation of the Jewish people, the special relationship that Hashem had with Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov will continue with us as a result of the keeping the mitzvot. And then it says, and God shall love you and bless you and multiply you and bless the fruit of your womb, the fruit of your soil, the corn, the wine, the oil, the increase of your cattle, the riches of your the land, which you swore unto your forefathers to give you. Blessed are you above all people. There shall be no impotent male or sterile female among you or amongst your cattle. And God will keep afar from you all illness and all the bad sufferings of Egypt, which you know he will not put upon you, but will lay them upon all those who hate you. Beautiful words, and expressing all the blessings that are going to come to us. The first word is Ekev. Ekev means as a consequence of. The literal word translation of Ekev is heel. It means that after you do this, the heel will touch this. So what is it that you're going to do first, and what is the heel? So what you're going to do is follow the commandments, to do what is right, without expecting any reward. So, but the commandments, the mitzvot, are so deeply harmonious to human nature and to what will make us happy, what will make us healthy, will make us in harmony with each other, with nature, that by their being faithful to each other, by being faithfully carried by the nation, all these blessings are going to come as automatically. It'll be like a person walking somewhere, first take a step, and then the heel comes. The blessings are part of the heel that we're going to do. Now, we do not expect these blessings. We are doing them because Hashem commanded us. And we have to make sure that we observe the commandments faithfully, not expecting reward or to pay a particular attention to one mitzvah because we think it's going to give us a richer experience or a richer reward. No, we need to observe all the mitzvot because all of them together form an organic whole, like a body. The paths of the Torah are even overlapping, so that one mitzvah goes into the other. They interlock with one another. And far-reaching results come from what is frequently even the smallest and seems to us the least important mitzvah. That's what the rabbis, using this word heel, say the heel is one of the smallest parts of the body. And that the reason the Torah uses the word heel in the observance of mitzvot is to say that even the smallest of mitzvot, the one that appears to us to be the least important or the least significant, even that is going to give us great results. And that's what the Torah says, Ekev tishme'un. So something that may seem trivial or petty, that tends to be left behind, like pushing away with our heel, as the rabbis say, mitzvot she'adam dash ba'akevo, mitzvot with which one person steps over as having little meaning, that even those mitzvot have to be observed. Making this differentiation of the Torah between what is more important and less important, it's incorrect. So even the mitzvot, one would say the mitzvot between men and men are more important than mitzvot between men and God, or vice versa. I observe the mitzvot between man and God, but I don't care about man. No, all of the mitzvot always, this differentiation between one thing and another are disastrous. So, in fact, the destruction of the temple was a result of disregarding the mitzvot between men and human beings. So, whether it's observance of Shabbat, or the observance of honesty, or keeping our words, all of these things are interconnected and related to one another. You know, I sometimes speak to people who are not religious, and in a way to justify themselves and to say that they are observant in some way of Judaism. They say to me, Rabbi, I observe the Ten Commandments. And I realize that they don't even know what the Ten Commandments are. Because one of the Ten Commandments is to keep Shabbat. They don't keep Shabbat. So they don't keep the Ten Commandments. I don't know about the others. I hope they do. But the idea is that people tend to have a cavalier attitude towards the mitzvot, thinking that one mitzvah is more important than the other. And therefore they want to observe only one and disregard the others. The Torah comes and tells us all of the mitzvot from organic, and they interlock to one another. When a person keeps kashrut correctly and with a lot of attention to what he's going to eat, he's also going to be careful about what he's going to say, or what he's going to talk about, what he's going to think. What comes into his mind, not only what comes into his mouth, is going to come. You know, we tend to learn to have filters when we keep kosher. So the connection between kashrut and many other parts of our mitzvot are intimate. Similarly with the keeping Shabbat. The keeping of Shabbat magnifies a very important aspect of our connection with the Creator, the idea that the universe is complex and beautiful, and that Hashem has given us so many gifts that we can appreciate. That's what Shabbat is about. So when we keep Shabbat, it has a connection with everything else, and so on and so forth. Every mitzvah has interlocking relationship with something else, and that's what the Torah here says, Kol a-mitzvah. It doesn't say all the mitzvot, but later the Gemara is going to say, the Torah is going to say all of the mitzvah. In chapter 8, it says all the commandment in the singular, which I command you today, you shall observe, so that you may live and multiply, and go in and take the land in possession that God swore to your forefathers. So the rabbis say, why does it say kol ha-mitzvah? In Hebrew, mitzvah is singular. It should say kol ha-mitzvot, which is plural, all the commandments. Why does it say all the commandment in the singular? To indicate that in reality, all the commandments form a whole, an organic whole. As the rabbis, some say that it's almost like one part of the body hurts, all the other parts of the body are integrated, are affected in some way. Similarly, when a person fails to do one mitzvah, equally he begins to have failure and deficiencies in other mitzvot as well. I want to point out today also a very beautiful idea. When the Torah begins with the word vehaya. Vehaya in Hebrew means, and it shall be. Translation is, and it shall be as a consequence of your observing the mitzvot, and so on. You will be blessed. Now, the rabbis point out that vehaya and vayehi are two forms of the verb, and it was, it means. One is in the past and one is in the future. The sound of vayehi is like vai, woe. It's one of fear, pain, like we say in Yiddish, vei, oy vei. So it means we're in pain. So the rabbi said that whenever the Torah uses that verb, vayehi, it means that there is something bad that is going to happen. It's a omen that something negative, sad is going to occur. That's what the Torah says, vayehi. But when it says vehaya, which is the same meaning in fifth form of the verb, there it means that it presages, it foretells an omen of something good, something happy. So here I want to point out a very beautiful idea. It says, vehaya Ekev tishme'un, and it shall be when you observe these commandments The word vehaya gives us joy, because that is one of the meanings of a mitzvah. Mitzvot, the observance of mitzvot, gives a person peace, serenity, meaning, and ultimately joy, happiness. You know, in America, we are used to the concept of the pursuit of happiness. And it's a beautiful concept that every person should try to achieve happiness, to get happiness. It's not a bad thing to want to be happy. The problem is, how do you achieve happiness? And who knows how to achieve happiness? God knows how to achieve happiness. The Creator who created us knows what kinds of activities, what kind of behavior, what kind of philosophy is going to give us that harmony and that happiness and that joy. Imagine that you go to somebody who is a very unwise person and is going to tell you, yeah, to be happy, just go and steal a bank, rob a bank. That would be a foolish thing. You may be happy for a while, to live a life like a bank robber until you're caught. Or somebody will say, well, to be happy, you have to take some drugs or have orgies or whatever. All of these ideas are what people pursue to be happy. But unfortunately, they do not lead to everlasting happiness. And there are consequences of this quote-unquote happiness that ultimately has an effect on our bodies, sometimes health, certainly psychology or values. I'm often speaking about the sad story of this tragic figure about which we're talking about today, this very wealthy man, Jeffrey Epstein, who unfortunately tried to find happiness. And we see what kind of life and what tragic end it had. So, of course, we all want happiness, but we have to make sure that we get on the road that is going to lead us to happiness. So, in America, we just want to see the pursuit of happiness. In the Torah, we're going to get the discovery of happiness. The psalmist says, David HaMelech, King David says, Pikudei Hashem yisharim mesamchei lev. The laws of the Torah make us happy. They are so harmonious, they're so perfect that they give us joy. One of the reasons that we do not study Torah, for example, on the Shabbat or on the fast days, is that it gives us joy. Now, one would think that, how could the study of anything give us joy? I mean, we're not used to, because we live in a materialistic world. So if someone were to tell me, that we're going to go to a great vacation somewhere in the Caribbean, immediately I would say, oh, this is going to be a fantastic idea. Or somebody offers me a very expensive whiskey or wine. All these are very pleasurable, beautiful things. That is something that I can understand. But somebody will tell you, you're going to study something and that's going to give you happiness. This is so remote from us, because this is a spiritual pursuit that sometimes it's difficult for us to be able to understand that this could give us happiness. But people who are engaged in the observance of mitzvot, who study Torah, who follow the commandments, who live ethical lives, who don't steal, who honor their word, who believe in God, who have faith, who have trust, these people are happy. Of course, there may be some people, individuals, who may have psychological problems, and you may not always see that, but the bottom line is that this is a kind of lifestyle that brings people to happiness, to harmony. And it is not because we are better. It's because Hashem created these laws. And the laws that Hashem, the Creator, developed are the laws that He knows are going to be right for our human nature, for the ecology in which we live, for the interaction between people. All the laws of psychology, sociology, chemistry that we understand. Hashem, in a way, knows them all and combines them all. So all the mitzvot have this effect of giving us happiness. So this is the beginning of this beautiful mitzvah, beautiful parasha, the beautiful concept of beautiful blessings that emerge from living a life of mitzvot. By the way, I want to point out that in Judaism, we do not understand happiness to be only spiritual. What we do is we transform even material things. We endow material things which are necessary for us as human beings. We are made of blood and flesh. So we need physical things. But these physical things are endowed with meaning, whether it's a relationship, marital relations, or the drink on Shabbat, or this joy, rejoicing on the holidays. All and every one of these activities contains an element of the physicality, of the food, or the physical pleasures, or whatever, in addition. And in fact, the rabbi said, you must be happy. You must find ways. If you are tired, to go to rest. If you're exhausted, you need to take a break and go on vacation. And be happy with your wife. Be happy with your children. Always have a smile. All of these physical things, of course, are necessary. So when I speak about the mitzvot, of course, I don't mean only intellectual study or learning or prayer or meditation, only at the spiritual level. In fact, Judaism is characterized by its genius in being able to provide spiritual meaning to physical activities. This connection of the two is particularly amazing in Judaism. In other religions, you find, for example, in Eastern religions, you find this, the only religious pursuit is done in the abandonment and denial of the body, in asceticism, in fasting, in being silent, in being alone, all of these things. In Christianity, which adopted many of the Jewish aspects as well, but still, the idea of the flesh being sinful, the difference between secular and holy, all of these things, the religion is only the spiritual. The genius of Judaism is to be able to find great spirituality even in physical things, in material things. So this is the reason that these mitzvot give us joy, and the parasha says, Ekev tishme'un. As a consequence, automatic consequence of your observing the mitzvot, you will experience this great happiness, this great joy. And that's what it says, that you will not only be happy, God is going to keep the covenant with you, and He will love you, and you will be connected with Hashem, and He will protect you from illness, protect you from maladies, protect you from plagues. It's a beautiful idea. That's what it talks about, all of these things. Now, I want to end with this part first, that the Torah requires that we should be always happy. Depression is one of the greatest tricks that the Satan plays against us to take us away. Okay, I want to point out an interesting aspect here in this parasha. The parasha gives us a description of the land of Israel. And always the land of Israel is defined as the land of milk and honey. But in this parasha, the Torah describes the land of Israel a little bit in a strange form. Let me read to you, and let's see what we analyze the curious way in which the Torah describes the land of Israel. It says, Ki haaretz asher ata ba. By the way, this beautiful description of the land, it's also, we find this in chapter 8. I want to just describe the land first of all. You are coming to a land of brooks and water, springs and flowing masses of water, that spring out in the valleys and mountains. It's not rivers, it's springs in the valleys, and everywhere you go, there's water. A land of wheat and barley, vines and figs and pomegranates, a land of oil, olives, and dates. Incidentally, the description of these 7 species are the 7 species for which Israel is famous. It's known, and therefore we have a special treatment of these fruits. For example, as we know, when you eat one of these fruits, especially the 5 fruits that are fruits, the grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, dates, these 5 fruits, normally when we eat, we say the bracha before, Baruch Hashem Borei Pri Ha'etz. But after we eat any other Borei Pri Ha'etz, any other fruit of the tree, we do not have to say a long blessing afterwards. We simply say the shorter blessing, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei nefashot rabot v'chesronam al kol ma shebarata. This short version. When you eat figs, pomegranates, dates, olives, all in this case, because these are mentioned in the Torah as the land, as the fruits of the land of Israel, for these fruits you have to say a longer bracha called bracha achrona, the 3-part blessing, al haaretz ve'al pirot, and so on. This is a longer bracha. So this is because these are the 7 fruits. Also, when the Torah says that you have to bring the first fruits to the temple, every farmer every year has to bring the first fruits that he harvests. First fruits, give it to the Kohen in the temple, called the bikurim. The bikurim can only be brought from these 7 fruits and not from other things. You can't bring it from oranges or apples or watermelons. It has to be only from these 7 fruits. So this land, and it's beautifully the way it's described, a land wherein you shall not eat bread in small amounts. You will eat always with richness, in which you shall not lack anything. A land with minerals and iron and copper. Beautiful description of the land of Israel. But later on, in chapter 11, the Torah gives a description of the land of Israel, which as I said before, is a little strange. It says as follows: the land into which you are coming in to take possession, the land of Israel, is not like the land of Egypt, from whence you came out. Because there, you planted the seed, and you water it with your feet as a vegetable garden. The Nile was so abundant with water, and usually overstepped its banks, overflowed. And as it overflowed, it simply went on all the fields, and all you needed to do was just walk it, and the water went everywhere. No work at all. It was easy. So the question is, it says here that land of that you're bringing is not as easy as the land of Egypt. That's very strange. Normally, we would say that Hashem would be wanting to praise the land of Israel. But here it appears as mentioning something that is deficient, less easy. And then it describes the land whither you are passing over to take into possession is a land of mountains and valleys. So you cannot just carry the water with your feet. It's only water by rain from heaven. And then it says a land which God is always care for. The eyes of God are constantly directed at it. So the question is, what is the Torah telling us here? That the land of Israel is not like the land of Egypt. That it lacks the kind of easy water irrigation that Egypt had. And let's remember that the land of Egypt was very fruitful. The Jewish people were very fruitful, they were in the best part of the land of Egypt. In fact, it says there, when Joseph tells Pharaoh that his brothers came, the Pharaoh says, put them in the best part of the land. So not only were they in a very fruitful land, they were in the best part of the fruitful land. And now the Torah says the land of Israel is not like the land of Egypt. Very strange. It almost comes to criticize the land of Israel. So I'm going to point out that there is a very important message in this text. And a message which I think will resonate with us as well. What the Torah is saying is in the land of Egypt, the water was always there. And because it's always there, people would lose the connection with God. You don't need to pray. You don't need to behave. You don't need to be moral. In the land of Israel, you depend on the heavens to bring you water. The idea that water only comes as a form of reward for moral actions in life is an incredible message. On the one hand, it appears to be a little bit scary. So that means that if I don't behave, I'm not going to get the water. But on the other hand, it means that I am always going to be dependent on Hashem. I'm always being connected with the divine. That is the blessing of the land of Israel. Of course, it's a land which you will not have water automatically, but you will have plenty of water for which to be grateful to Hashem for. And every time you get rain, you experience gratitude. Can you imagine what an incredible thing is to live in a land where you don't need to feel grateful for anything? When your behavior, as immoral as it may, doesn't matter, that everything goes the way it should, it's comfortable for you, what it does to a human being. There's a little bit, I talk a little bit about young kids with a lot of money. There's no better way of ruining a human being, especially a young person, than telling him, don't worry, you don't have to work, you don't have to do anything. Just ask daddy, he'll give you whatever money you need. Any parent who does this to a parent, we've seen it many times, experiences like this, ruins a child. In fact, some of the wealthiest people who are smart always force their children to work and do not let them think that because if parents are billionaires, that they can live without working anywhere. So that is the curse of Egypt, that you had everything all the time. And there is the blessing of Israel. There, your moral compass will be an indicator. The heaven will be a compass, a barometer of your behavior. As it says in the Shema, the second paragraph of the Shema, if you are going to do the mitzvot, your rain will come in its time in abundance. But if Hashem is unhappy with you, the heavens will be closed and there will be no rain. That is the blessing of the land of Israel. And this teaches us an important message. Number one, that when we are lacking in something, we should see it as an opportunity for us to recognize that we can pray, that we have a God who listens to us. You remember that we gave a lecture on the importance of prayer. Prayer refines us, improves us, makes us better, just by the idea of praying to Hashem. To believe that we have a God who can listen to us is an incredible thing. And then another aspect, which is a great blessing of lacking something and then getting it, is the idea of gratitude. I want to tell you a personal story. I lost something. I didn't know where it was. In Shabbat. And I was worried about where is it. I asked my wife, I asked other people. I misplaced this item. And then finally, this morning, as I was looking at some papers on my desk, I found it. I had such joy in finding it. I don't know if it happened to you before. You lose something and suddenly, when you find it, you say, thank God, I'm so happy. The sense of happiness came as a result of not having had it. Having lost it, having misplaced it, was an opportunity for me to feel another burst of joy and happiness. Would my having it in my pocket all the time giving me this joy? No. So in an ironic way, this rhythmic lack and provision, absence and fulfillment, this rhythm that is part of the human nature enriches us and gives us a burst of happiness every time. And that's what Hashem is saying. Do not develop the arrogance that comes when the water is always there, but develop the character that makes you connected with God to ask Him for what you need, and afterwards to feel grateful for having received it. The rabbis say that the greatest curse was the curse of the snake. Remember that Hashem gave Adam the three declarations: you are going to work by the sweat of your eyebrow. To Chava, you're going to have children with pain. And to the curse, it says you're going to eat dust. So some rabbis ask the question, how bad is it to eat dust? Dust may not taste good, but for the serpent, for the snake, he probably likes it. They're not interested in gourmet foods, or they don't know what creme brulee looks like or tastes like. So wherever they go, we have to go work hard to find food. We have to cook it, we have to make it, we have to buy it. The snake has it all the time. What kind of a curse is this? Doesn't have to do anything. So the rabbis say, that's the curse. The curse is that the snake will be forever disconnected from God, forever disconnected from the spiritual. He will never experience the happiness of getting what is missing, because he's never missing anything. That's the curse of plenty. And that's why the land of Israel is a great blessing, because it connects us with God. And that's what the Torah immediately in that pasuk says, that it is a land which God is constantly looking at, connecting with you. By the way, what is the next verse? Precisely the second paragraph of the Shema. And it shall be, when you hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you, and so on, that I will give rain of your land in its due season. And then it says, and you shall have all the fruit and all the grain. But when you become worshiper of idols, then God will hold back the heaven, and there will be no rain, and the soil will not produce. This is the second paragraph of the Shema. So this is the lesson that we learn. That's why the land of Israel is rich. It's rich not in material things that are there all the time, but in the opportunity, the creation of situations that give us, first of all, a connection with the divine, and a connection with gratitude and real joy. Rabbi Bachaya says that the things that we are lacking are really the enablers of prayers, and therefore also the enablers of our connection with Hashem. And it's interesting also that in the talking about the manna, the man, God says, "Vaye'ancha, vaye'ar'ivecha." God made you, tortured you, or made you suffer, and He made you hungry, and then gave you the manna. So the rabbis say, why is the manna making us hungry? Manna was a beautiful food. So the rabbis say, no. When we enter the land, the desert, it was a place there was no food. It was a place where it was lacking a lot of things. And in that place of absence, of default, of of failure or emptiness, in that place where there was a possibility of being hungry, Hashem gave us the manna. And this is a lesson for all of us also, and all the time, that Hashem will always provide for us. That Hashem will provide and give us all that we need, and that we will never miss or lack anything if we have Hashem with us. And that is the meaning. Again, and it says, God made you hungry. Only when you are hungry, and then you pray to Hashem, and Hashem brings you what you need, then that is the way that you realize that all that you will get comes from God. And that is the spiritual lesson of eating 40 years a manna. 40 years the manna came from heaven. For 40 years they learned a lesson that all that you need will come from God. And when Hashem sends you something, you will lack nothing. Nothing will be lacking for you. Not that God will send you on the spiritual or this or all the menus will be fulfilled by God. I want to end with this idea of when a person does not have God in his life, what happens? Then he develops arrogance. And the Torah describes it in chapter 8, and it says, it will be, and that's the tragedy, that when you will be successful, when you will be rich, when everything will go your way, then you will say, God says, remember, God gave you the man, but be careful, lest you eat and are satisfied and have beautiful homes and are settled down, your herds, your flocks are multiplying, you have silver and gold, you're a rich man, everything you have will become greater, then your heart will become haughty and arrogant, and you forget God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, who led you through the terrible wilderness, who gave you the man. Remember that, as we said, that the man is a reminder that all comes from heaven. And then you will say in your heart, my power and my might did all this for me. Who made me wealthy? Who made me rich? Who built this house? I remember that a certain politician once told rich people who build companies, you didn't build that. The government helped you or whatever. And there was a lot of controversy about it. I certainly do not mean to say that people do not have to have the pride of knowing and saying, it's my effort, my discipline, my putting it all together. People who, nobody helped Mr. Bezos create this great wealthy company or Gates or anybody else. These people built something, and nobody helped them, but God helped them. We have to be grateful that every one of them, that they had the health to be able to do it, that they did not develop cancer or some other thing that killed them, or they were not in an accident. God had given them the life circumstances to be able to be disciplined. There are plenty of people who, through psychological problems in life, the parents, abusers, whoever, so many circumstances are to create a person who has the ability, the intelligence, the discipline, the psychological health to be able to build a business. So, of course, a person should say, I am grateful to God. To be able to say, I owe nothing to nobody, I did it all myself, is the utmost of arrogance. And that arrogance can create the kinds of malignant character developments in which a person really is no longer a good human being. Usually people like that are neither charitable, not nice, they're not kind, even if they give billions to or millions to philanthropy. Philanthropy usually to enlarge their own egos, to feel to provide meaning for their lives. Charity, real charity, is when a person expects nothing, it almost does it silently and quietly. So a lot of the people who become rich and attribute their money only to themselves, without paying attention to all the other things that were right for them in their lives, without being thankful to God that put them all together. And sometimes it could even be, as we say, a matter of luck, circumstances that just arise, so that we have to be grateful for the circumstances that all combine to bring me to this position of being able to have money. That is the gratitude that we feel to Hashem. And a person who feels gratitude is a better person, is a kinder person, and is also a happy person. A person who really is happy because he's grateful that he's connected with something greater. And I want to end this year with what we began. The ultimate desire of a human being is to be happy. That is ingrained in our lives. We all want to be happy. But the question is, what are the ways that are going to bring us to happiness? They're going to yield happiness. And the answer is nothing that is not created by human beings alone. We cannot create the conditions of everlasting happiness. We can create the conditions of temporary happiness, transient happiness. And very often happiness that brings us sometimes to great despair and disillusionment, and sometimes even shame. Like a person who's very happy drinking and then, makes a fool of himself. So this is a happiness that doesn't lead to real happiness. And so it doesn't lead to the kind of pride and serenity that because happiness has to have also, it's not just being happy, it has to be happiness with peace. A person who's hysterical, euphoric, it's going to fall. So what we mean by happiness is not just the happiness you have at a party, but it's a spiritual experience. And you cannot have a spiritual experience from material things. It is only in compliance with the Creator, who is, in a sense, the source of spirituality. And the mitzvot, which are essentially the rules that Hashem gave us to be happy. It's almost as if it says, you want to be happy in the world? You want to be healthy? Do this, and you will do well. And that's what happens when people are in that command. Then we are going to achieve real happiness. And I want to, and that's what the Torah says, the happiness is not going to be created, it's not a reward you get later on. It's the consequence, the automatic consequence of this lifestyle. I'll give you an example. A person who wants to be happy in life, to be honest. A person who doesn't lie, who's honest with himself, with other people, is usually a person who's always going to be happy and in good connection with other people. Take a person who's a liar, he loses his job, he'll fight with people will not trust him, he's going to be hated, he's going to feel persecuted. Terrible person. Happy, the lying is giving him some benefits, but they're not lasting, and they are the beginning of great tragedy. And that's why the only the mitzvot that Hashem gave us are the ones that are going to give us the happiness that is a spiritual experience, that has no hangover, has no shame afterwards, is really a true and wonderful happiness. This happiness is expressed also in material things. The person is healthy, can have a beautiful life, a beautiful home, food, people around them, a wife and children and a husband, and connection with the community. All of these physical things that are going to be resulting from living a life of mitzvot. And so I want to leave you with this thought as we began, that the great, and that's what I think that this whole shir was about, the same idea. It is precisely in the connection with God the land of Israel had, when we needed to be connected with the heavens for the rain, and that the rain was a barometer of our moral behavior, that we deserved that rain. It didn't come automatically, and that sometimes we did not have the rain, and it came. We got grateful to Hashem. All of these things were the refinement. We see that through the commandments, many rains come to us, beautiful rains of blessings, rains of happiness, rains of harmony, and rains of serenity, that we can be at peace with ourselves. In a world where stress, depression, anxiety are destroying many people's health, this serenity is, with happiness, is one of the great blessings that Hashem has given us, who fulfill the mitzvot, who keep the mitzvot, who are connected with Him. Okay, Israel is a very beautiful land. Not only as the Torah describes it for all the beautiful things that it grows, but especially the mountains, the hills, the valleys. And those could only be watered by rain. A few years ago, because of the fact that the Jews were not in Israel, the land was barren. This beautiful land flowing with milk and honey at the time of the Jews became barren. So the Torah says that one of the reasons it became barren is so that nobody else would stay in it. Nobody wanted to stay in Israel. What kind of a land is this? Thank God. No nation made Israel its center because the land was barren. But now that the Jewish people have returned to the land is beginning to have more rain than used to be even a few years ago. No rain in the summer. Now it's raining often. There are greens, there are trees. The land of Israel is growing beautifully, becoming again the land that Hashem promised to the Jewish people. And that, I think, is also, as the rabbis say, if you want to know when is the time that Mashiach is going to come, look at the land of Israel. When the land of Israel becomes fruitful, that's the time Mashiach is coming, because Mashiach is coming when the Jewish people are returning to the land of Israel. And I want to point out that the land of Israel was always fruitful. Only those 2,000 years, the land became barren and uninteresting. And that was, thank God, so that no nation could say, this is my land. No nation in 2,000 years settled in the land of Israel said, this is our land. The little peasants that were here from there, from Syria, they were just migrants. Nobody made it into this land. So that is a sign that Mashiach is going to come. When you look at the land of Israel today, and you see the beauty of that land. So we're going to end this lecture then on Parashat Ekev with a beautiful story about Eretz Israel, the land of Israel.